My very last question has to do with a gang of scientists who sort of new on the block, who seem to think that scientists who ask too many why questions or who turn to God for the answers to those questions are really bad guys and should be watched closely, if not chased around the block. So you get, say, Professor Richard Dawkins. Well, let's see. You get. Let me see here. You get Nobel laureate Steven Weinberg. Anything that we scientists can do to weaken the hold of religion should be done, and maybe in the end, our greatest contribution to civilization. Richard Dawkins in The God Delusion says, anyone who believes in an Old Testament God is believing in, and this is, I'm quoting, is believing in a petty, unjust, unforgiving control freak, a vindictive, bloodthirsty, ethnic cleanser, misogynist, homophobic, racist, infanticidal, genocidal, filicidal, pestilential, megalomaniacal, sadomasochist, capriciously malevolent bully. So I'm wondering, now you actually ran into this crowd out in California. And,
I spent a couple of days with them, yes.
Yeah. And now I know that you share many of the feelings they have, but their mood is somewhat new. They worry that in the Middle East and all over the world, these people who are these godful people, who in their view are very, very sure of themselves and often in their view fanatical and sometimes come armed with either suicide's ability to blow themselves up or worse, so some of them now in Iran may have, terrible weapons, that these people, because they are religious and because they have technical and scientific knowledge, are dangerous people. And they act like they're dangerous people, and they get scared, and they say these terrible things about them. I'm wondering, why do you think this is happening, and do you agree with it?
In 30 words or less?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I understood the question, I think. I think the issue here is not specifically with regard to religion. One could abstract the problem away from religion and address the problems that come about when a person or any group of people are certain that they have access to the unassailable truth that others do not. And this can happen with or without religion.
Yes.
It can happen with scientists, as it did in the Nazi regime, for example, where they had a belief system, a eugenical belief system, that in their judgment was unassailable, that the Aryan race was the leaders of all humanity. And so when you are a part of a system that has a dogmatic belief, it is not subject to comment, to criticism, to revision. And anytime you have a belief system that's not subject to revision, you have a combustible mixture when that system has access to power, as was true in Nazi Germany. I mean, it's as what is true in religious states that have access to military power. If they don't otherwise have access to a military power, then it's kind of just an innocent belief system. It's not hurting anyone. And so, unlike Dawkins, I'm not going to run around tell people what to believe and what not to believe. I'm not interested in that. That's not my mission. And in fact, as barbed as those words were, I didn't even know there were that many words in the dictionary that could do that, all right, in that sequence. But if you hear him speak those words, it's even more barbed. And I've actually had a rejoinder to him at the very meeting where a lot of this came out. If you do YouTube, Tyson Dawkins, those 3 words, Google, YouTube, Tyson Dawkins, you'll go straight to a clip of me saying to Dawkins at a workshop that he, being professor of the public understanding of science, when he carries on that way, he actually turns off half the people who he's trying to communicate with. So that makes him a lesser communicator if, in fact, he's trying to communicate an idea. It's actually rather divisive. And so now, if you want to be divisive, fine, but then just don't call yourself a communicator if the only people who listen to it are those who already believe what you're saying. Communicators convince those who don't otherwise know what you're talking about into what you say. Effective communicators. So my point is, and I lost track of where I was.
Well, what I'm wondering is, do you condemn Richard Dawkins for using these words? Or you just say, well,
right.
you're just,
so I'm saying it's
you're not making your point very
so,
well.
so all I'm saying is it's the so where I come to the issue is, like I said, I don't care what you believe. It doesn't matter to me, provided it doesn't harm another person. However, if what you believe is demonstrably false and you want to pass it off as true in a science classroom, I have an issue with that. If you want to say it in the religion class, fine. In the belief system class, fine. In the history of human thought class, fine. And I don't know how many of you, I managed to get like a little letter to the editor in the New York Times a month ago. Do you remember that case in New Jersey where there was the middle school student who tape recorded the history teacher saying that the students will burn in hell if they don't believe in Jesus Christ? Do you remember that? And it became a whole hullabaloo in the district, and they would say separation of church and state, this is a violation of the First Amendment, or Second, whichever amendment, okay? First Amendment, separation of church and state. And everybody got up, and ALC, the American Civil Liberties Union, everybody's jumping in arms about separating church and state. And I'm saying, among the statements made by this teacher were that the Big Bang and evolution were not scientific theories, and that Noah's Ark carried dinosaurs. Now, so at some point, I said, I can't keep listening to this. And I wrote a really short letter. Short letters are the best, I think. And all I said was, after 2 other letters rambling on about keeping religion out of the school because of the amendment in the Constitution, I said, this is not an issue of the separation of church and state. No, you got that wrong. This is an issue of the separation of ignorant, scientifically illiterate people from the ranks of school teachers. And so here's a person. Now, I cited in defense of that line his comment about the Big Bang and evolution and dinosaurs with Noah's Ark. I did not cite in that his assertion that Jesus Christ is a savior, because not much I can say about that. But to pretend that the rest of this information, that he's accurate in this information, that's a travesty. That anyone who calls himself a teacher would believe that as factual information about the history of the world. That's when I jump up and I have something to say. Right. Whereas my distinguished colleagues here are ready to run out and, and they're ready to run out and sort of change the world. I'm now, religion's here long before science ever was. Every culture there's ever been has had a religion. And so I'm not here to try to change that. There's some rich things that have come out of art and music, and there's a lot there. So and it's not like science never been used for nefarious purposes, and it's not as though all leaders who caused great war and destruction were religious. Others were secular, like Pol Pot, and Hitler was not associated particularly with any. So I'm not here to have that debate. I have a limited budget of time, energy, and capacity to share with people an understanding of how the world works. And I just keep it in that domain.